Episode of Winston Walks. My name is Winston. I take walks. It's kind of another special edition, I guess. We are heading again to Rogers Center slash Skydome for the second game of the ALDS. This one will actually not be a majority sports focused talk one. I want to actually talk about kind of the real estate market and the environment. I guess sort of kind of an investment. This walk's usually long, and I think I have a little more to add on that. I did one yesterday. You'll probably listen to it if you listen to it. It'll be it's a bigger duration when I post these actual videos versus when I record them, obviously, right? But I'm a Yankees fan. If you guys didn't know, Jays kicked our ass yesterday. Congratulations on the first game, and it is what it is. Beauty of sport, at least the most days, is that we've got today's a new day, new game. And we got Max Fried going up against Savage. Savage is still somewhat of a question, and we'll see if Max is Max, right? But we'll see if we can get to Savage. But we'll see. But anyways, I know. Again, congrats to the Jays. It's been a while since we won a playoff game. Again, we've gone to a lot of games in the past, and we financially support those guys. So, and Toronto is a bandwagon type city. Frankly, we do see a lot of people there now, and to be honest with you, usually it's the people who are the most vocal are not the ones that are actually the ones that are there, right? So. And whatever. I mean, it is what it is, right? But isn't that beautiful here? Got lots of beautiful condos. So let's tackle the first thing in terms of economics, in terms of the condo market, right? So with the condo market here, right now we are in a correction slash. It's getting to be a kind of a crash in prices. So obviously with Canadian real estate, like with all real estate, it's geographic specific. So when you think about it, obviously somebody in I don't know these other markets, but like smaller markets like Saskatoon or I don't know, somewhere else, right? Basically not Toronto and Vancouver. Even Montreal was pretty spicy in terms of the pricing, but we're in Toronto. I've seen some pretty deep declines, and also it's hitting the freeholds as well, and then also homes, but condos are the biggest hit. And in terms of, I know a lot of people like to separate the class, those classes. So they'll talk about, detached homes, single detached, as a completely different asset class as condominiums, right? And to a certain extent, yes, there is a difference, especially ones that are smaller, that are, quote unquote, dog crate, because they're usually used for the rental market. And the rental market, obviously, we have a ton of rentals now hitting the markets. Rents are going down. Right, so but at the end of the day, they do have a correlation where they're used to live in, right? So when you think about it, those units have some correlation. So freeholds go down, condo units go down. They keep going down. At some point, they're going to be cheap enough where they're a viable substitute. To another sort of unit, right? And the trickle down effect is there, right? Because then, it'll affect the one bedroom unit, then the 2-bedroom unit, and then it becomes, 3-bedroom unit, and then it becomes a viable threat to a semi-detached, right? And then the semi-detached, that's cheap enough, it becomes a threat to the detached, etc. So, and then obviously you have the high-end market and all that stuff, but we're not going to go there. But anyways, right now we've got an abundance of condos right now, and frankly, they're still going up. I know they talk about no new units being started, but I always make the argument, folks, this place isn't a perpetual growth engine, right? Toronto, it's not necessarily the one and only place to live in. I know Torontonians start to think that. And listen, I'm a natural-born Torontonian, born and raised here. But I'll be frank. I mean, I know a lot of people, especially folks who have more affluent tastes. The way things are going, they can get better value in other, quite frankly, other places, other countries, right? So this is Bay and I'm on Gerrard right now. Again, I'm heading down to the Dome. I'm gonna show you another way of getting there, in case you folks ever are staying in downtown Toronto and you just want to know how to get there. So, like, there's a major hotel down there. I forgot what it's called. There are a bunch actually here. So we're gonna walk across to the hospital network, and then that's university, and then we're gonna turn down and walk all the way down, and then we'll get really close to the Dome, Rogers Center, Scotiabank as well, if you're going to see a Leaf game, right? So, but anyways, getting back to the original topic here, condos. So they're still going up. Developers, with thing with condos is obviously in real estate, you can't start a project, stop in the middle. I mean, I think theoretically you could, but it makes no sense, right? You want to complete it, and then hopefully either sell it. Well, hopefully it's sold off, and then or rent it. Because with these buildings, they need about 3/4. From what I understood, with pre-con projects, and again, this is from contacts I've had conversations with. 3/4 of the building has to be pre-sold, and the way the pre-con market works is that you don't have to obviously put anything like you don't have to put the full amount down. You can put a small amount down, and there are milestones. When they are met a certain period of time, you have to put on your next tranche of money, right, to help, I guess, the builder or whatever. So this obviously helps the buyers, because you don't have to put it all at once, and then because also the banks won't give you a mortgage on something that's not completed, right? So at the end, essentially what you're going to do then is get a mortgage, which theoretically for the builder is like the rest of the financing coming through, and then essentially the title then goes to the bank, essentially, right? I mean, when you make your payments, or they have a lien against your home, right? I guess you technically have the home, but they've got a lien against it. So really you're in partnership with the bank when you have a mortgage on your home. So that being said, a lot of places now, years ago when people were buying, these pre-constructions units, because they were going up by a lot, and it was the power of leverage, right? It was essentially a call option. For those of you who are familiar with derivatives in the finance sector, it's essentially a call option, and that's what it was. But the only issue with it here is that it's very difficult to close, right? So people who bought those pre-cons, and even there's a thing called selling on assignment, where you can essentially offload that to another person. But what some people are finding is that in the eyes of the builder, that actually obligation hasn't changed, right? And that's something that is coming up now with the lawsuits. Because, for instance, if I had bought a pre-con, and then let's say I just got rid of it because I'm like, wow, you know what? Forget this, right? And years ago, because we've had a 30-year bull run plus in the real estate market, right? So when you think about it, most people would close on that condo because it's profitable, right? So if you think about it, you sell your assignment, and you essentially will, that person's going to close on it. You got no problem. Developer gets their money. Everyone's happy. Profit is made, right? However, now, because condo prices are dropping, some of those people are not fulfilling their obligations, right? But the developer, what they see on paper is, they don't see it with that other person. They see it with me. So they're actually coming back to me and saying, hey, you gotta fulfill on this thing, right? And I had no idea. So that's the problem, right? So anyways, we're having a lot of big issues where this supply essentially was not forecasted by a lot of the MLS system, a lot of the real estate companies. So essentially you have a lot of this supply coming on the market, right? A lot of it is now becoming rentals because people aren't buying it. So if you're the developer, I know some of them have been changing it from selling ownership to renting. So that's become a big issue. So now you've got this dump of tons of rental units, and then that puts pressure on the rent rate, the rent price, right? Which it all comes down to. Sorry, it'll all make sense. So you've got now you've got increased supply of rentals, which reduces the rental rate. Okay. And this is for the investment side, right? Obviously, for if you're living it in personal use, this part you shouldn't necessarily care, unless you are using your home as a quote-unquote piggy bank, where you're withdrawing, a secured line, and you're taking equity out of that for it's one thing to use it for investments. But if you're using it for, this is university now. This is the hospital network. Sick kids, great cause. Over here was Mount Sinai, another great hospital. That's one thing I am proud of Toronto. We have great hospitals here. Unfortunately, the system is overrun right now. I think... Unfortunately, we had to visit an emergency room recently for one of our family members, and the wait time was 4.5 hours. They even posted on the board that's on average 4.5 hours. So just keep that in mind. But anyways, getting back to real estate. Sorry, I tend to babble a lot. So you've got this lowering rent rate, right? So when you're buying a unit, again, based on numbers, okay, rent is your income, right? So you've got a declining income, okay? Yes, you have, depending on if you finance it, the risk-free rate is you're always going to measure it against, obviously, what you can get just in a GIC or, out there, or a government treasury bill, right? Something in terms of the risk-free rate, right? And that rate right now is actually pretty decently priced right now. Depending on where who's listening, I guess if you're in the States, you're in Canada, it differs, right? But the point is that that has to come into play, because you could, instead of buying that property, you could invest it, right? And then you could take that capital, interest income, whatever, dividends, right? And then use that to either rent a place. Essentially, you're getting property, right? And I know people will say, well, you can't live in your stock or your bond or whatever. However, it can definitely get you the same effect, which is shelter, right? So, I mean, you could say pride of ownership, blah, blah. Well, you've got a nice investment portfolio that's pumping out money, right? But one thing also people have to think about is the expense side on that ownership of that property. So one thing that we're really having issues with here in Toronto is property taxes. So our mayor recently, she's kind of laid out the warning again. So we've had past 3 years, I think it's close to past 4 years, I guess. I think it's close to 35% increase in the rate of property tax, right? So you're paying a lot more, right? And a lot of seniors obviously have the old homes, and literally it's eating them alive, right? Never mind inflation in the everyday living, but now you have to deal with the fact that your property taxes are going up like crazy, right? So that's a problem. So when you have to actually put that into, as well as the mortgage, if you have a mortgage as well, folks, don't fool yourself. Understand bond rates, which essentially is where where banks get their mortgage money from. The banks no longer just get mortgage money from your neighbor's deposits. They have to actually acquire it from the capital markets, right? So what they do there is they essentially borrow from capital markets, right? Thus, you understand right now, perceived inflation is low right now. We've got this tariff war. Our economy is really weak, etc. However, they still are bringing in people. They still are printing a lot of money. What I've also heard is that the Bank of Canada is once again accepting mortgages from banks, essentially providing them liquidity, right? So that happened during the financial crisis, even I believe during COVID as well. COVID was insane, how much liquidity they pumped in it, but the government is still doing those things. And I know a lot of people have their reasons why they think they're doing it. Okay, this is by the way, this is University and Dundas right now. So we're still going to walk down towards the dome. But so be careful in terms of the mortgage rate you take, especially people who take variable rate mortgages. That can spike on you. And we saw in the past 2 years that it did. If you actually think about it for a second, when you're deciding about how much interest rate risk you want to take on, and that's what a mortgage really is, right? You're gonna take a look back in the past 2 years and just look at the variability in mortgage rates, or even 5 years, right? It's ideally you would like a very steady, flat, rate environment where, as you as the mortgage payer, can depend on, okay, my payment's going to be this amount, right? However, if you look at it in the past 5 years, you've had periods where it's dropped like a rock, then spiked up, and then starting to drop again, right? So that's not healthy, right? That's not healthy for planning. That's not really that's really tough in terms of actually getting it to. So that's the thing I would say, where you have to really think about that. right? And then obviously how much of a balance you have, because let's be frank, if your mortgage is very small and you have a large income, and it's, you know what, then it's inconsequential. I mean, it's a pain in the butt if your mortgage payment jumps on you, or your rate jumps on you, but you can handle it, right? But there's a lot of Canadians right now that are, I'm sure Americans as well, and whoever, people from international markets as well, that are, you know, razor thin on what they can handle, right? So that's why, you know, I'd say definitely be mindful, be careful. So that's another thing in terms of your mortgage. Other thing here is insurance. That's starting to become an issue with, I don't know if it's climate change. I don't know if it's, you know, our insurance companies here have a lot of, you know, their fingers in different pots. And also from what I understand, some of the insurance companies own real estate as well now. So they're feeling that hit as well. So just keep that in mind when you are actually, you know, with insurance. I mean, you know, whether it's, and also the commercial insurance market is an issue, because you know, a lot of claims are being made because a lot of commercial properties are having a hard time with people not going back to work, etc. So that's a big problem. So insurance is another cost that you have to think about, right? So in terms of your variables, you know, and obviously utilities, maintenance. I know, you know, I'm not dogging people. I know that I've seen some YouTube videos where I see like real estate companies talk about, you know, buying homes, chopping them up. It's really cheap and easy. The cash flows will be great, right? However, you know, in my limited experience, frankly, but when trying to fix a home up and getting it sold is extremely difficult, extremely chaotic. It can be expensive depending on, you know, what type of property or what type of materials or how nice you want the property. But you know, realistically, it's not as easy as people say, right? Or obviously people be buying up properties left and right and just chopping them up. But then you're chopping them up into making them into small condo units, essentially, right? And what's the thing in Toronto right now that's not selling? Small condo units, right? So I don't know. So just keep that in mind as well, right? So you have all these different costs. So when you put that equation together, lowering rents, increasing expenses for utilities, costs, things like that, inflation's going to probably keep bumping that up. Property taxes that keep going up as well. You're going to have, and then also in terms of the risk-free rate, you know, I know the Bank of Canada and the Fed are sort of trying to cut rates, but you know, longer-term rates, I'm not sure are going to keep going down. They might actually jump because of inflation expectations. So the point is, you're actually going to get a lower asset price, right? And you're living in it. You know what? Who cares, right? Who cares? I would say if you have a family living there, or yourself, and you're happy with it, who cares, right? If you're borrowing from it as a piggy bank to live on you know, your lifestyle, and you're paying the I think it's $4.75 right now as prime. You got to be careful there, because if you you know, years ago I used to work in the banking industry, in the retail, and I remember a couple that would come in, and I kid you not, they would refinance constantly every year, right? And the thing is, they made decent income, and you know, it's fine, but the thing is, they were living way above their means. It was not prudent financial planning, right? And then I remember one time I was even asking them, I was kind of talking to them about that, and basically the wife, I guess, she told me, well, you know, she said, you know, we are like, they had I'm not gonna talk about what they did, but I remember she was saying they are this profession, they work as this, and that they deserve to live this way, right? And I remember thinking, wow, like, one day, reality's gonna hit them straight in the face, right? Because they had minimal savings, and they just spent through the roof on just, assets that aren't really, well, it was just expense. It was just consumer expenses that weren't even like just, or luxury expenses that they, really, it wasn't investments. Let's put it that way. So, but anyways, getting back to that. So that's why you got to be careful, and keep in mind that secured line of credit you have, it is floating, right? So if they start raising the prime rate again due to, let's say, inflation concerns, that's going to go up. Well, this is the new subway line that they may or may not, or they'll eventually, I'm sure, get it, but who knows with the city. But that's why, in terms of the real estate, like when you work that all out, the price still doesn't make sense. And then when you work out what the rate of return would be, right, you have to compare that against, again, assets like, the bond market, the GIC market, even a portfolio, of equities, fixed income, and some cash, right? And if you want to even get more complicated with your portfolio, add in a little bit of precious metals, a little cryptocurrency, some commodities, etc., which have done extremely well. But that's where when you benchmark that potential income versus that's why right now, as much as prices have gone down, and you know what, the government may, do a super boost again of the economy, and maybe, they'll stop the decline, at least temporarily, of home prices, but, and you know what, on paper, it actually may go up slightly, right? But when you count all the expenses, because people don't count all the expenses of owning a property, that is the true scenario. So anyways, that's kind of why I think right now we still got a ways to go, or at least a duration to go. Folks, if you're expecting like 30% increases a year again, like we had, it's not going to happen, right? Not going to happen at all. So just make sure you're not over levered, and be prudent right now in terms of that market. That being said, let's talk about another one. Interesting one. I know I have my silver and gold stackers on this channel, or actually my other channel. This is my walks channel, and we're coming up to Queen and University. We'll be hitting Front Street soon, and that's when we'll hit the Dome soon. But in terms of precious metals, what a run gold and silver has had. Right now, I think gold is almost it's at over 3,900 US. In terms of the futures contract, I know with Canadian bullion, and again, this is rough, etc. You're looking at about 5,500 to 5,600 an ounce for gold, and for silver, I think you're looking around $70 to $73. Again, depending on the day, especially silver, the price is extremely volatile. But what a run! I've been stacking since the pandemic, when I think at one point silver was around $28, $29 an ounce, and gold was about I think $2,300 or $2,400. This is Canadian as well, right? So and now it's such a run. Wow, amazing. Um, Obviously, why has it gone up so much? And the reason why is, like I mentioned, also in terms of with real estate, is that you've got inflation expectations soaring, right? So, whether it's and also there is a not getting political, but the United States, their policies can be conceived as controversial. Some people say unstable, right? Again, I'm not going to get political. You do you in terms of that. You can argue with each other. I'm not going to go there. But big thing is for me with precious metals is that we're at Simcoe now. We're getting close to the dome. This is still University, and there's Hilton as well. But when you look at precious metals, big part of it is inflation expectations. The use that I use bullion for, I don't buy and sell it because, frankly, it's not a trading vehicle for me. I can use that through, either futures contracts or exchange traded contracts or exchange traded notes. That's something that's out there. It's more liquid. Getting rid of it. Bullion, can be tougher because obviously there's a spread in terms of the dealers. They'll I understand the dealers have to, and the dealers have to take on a certain limit because they have to hedge their portfolio because precious metals are volatile, right? Especially right now. So I use it basically as a inflation hedge slash, I guess, I don't know if I'd consider myself a tinfoil hat person, but just against a system, hedge. It's kind of cool right there. Right? So that's why I take it. I make it a certain percentage of my portfolio. I make sure that I don't go crazy. Obviously, it's not a gamble; it's a hedge, right? So that's what you're doing. Well, that's what I'm doing, anyways, right? So, this is Shangri-La Hotel. This is another one. So we're coming up here to oh, this is Adelaide. And then we'll be hitting King soon. And again, Dome's not too far from here. But keep in mind, folks, though, the one thing I will warn you against, and again, I'm talking against my own book, so understand that. Be careful in terms of these very high prices. I know everyone is coming up with some insane price targets on gold and silver bullion right now. I know people are talking about how it's a substitute for the bond market. I'll tell you, fortunately, it is not a substitute for the bond market. Bonds have their use. Their volatility in your portfolio. So when you think about putting together a financial portfolio, you need to have certain assets that have less volatility, right? So bonds would be it, and they also provide you a cash flow, right? So interest income, depending on the duration. Sometimes you obviously have corporate bonds or higher yielding bonds, but you can build that, right? Precious metals don't provide you, because normally I know there are some companies that are trying to utilize things, but they don't provide you a cash flow because obviously it's just an asset, right? Just keep that in mind. And then also you have competing ideologies like cryptocurrencies, let's say. Bitcoin is really doing well again. It was kind of floundering there for a while. You have Ethereum, Solana, etc. There's always new coins coming out, so you know. But so just keep that in mind. So right now we've had this huge run in precious metals. Just keep in mind that there are trend lines that if you look at it, these types of assets, they generally revert back to their trend lines. So keep that in mind, because right now, like, I heard a lot of people going obviously Costco and buying. I know there are shortages of some bullion products in certain areas. It's crazy, right? So I still like gold and silver longer term. I think that obviously governments will keep devaluing printing. This is Kingan University, folks. See what we're gonna do? We're gonna walk through by Massey Hall. So just keep that in mind when you're buying. Just keep, if you're gonna buy for that long-term hold of, for your portfolio, just don't be surprised if you're buying in this area that, the thing doesn't, have a pullback, right? Because right now it's pretty insane. The growth is granted. There's a lot of money being printed out there, and I think Trump's big beautiful bill. All right, folks, don't ever do this. And if you want to use it as a trading vehicle, don't use bullion. Like I said, use futures or use ETFs or ETNs. Obviously not financial advice, but you shouldn't. And none of this is financial advice, just so we're clear. Just this random guy who walks his opinion on stuff. That's it. Right? So, yeah. But it's interesting. But also with speaking on the investment side, like, and I'll actually take it. So precious metals, I would say, still good longer term. It's just in the near term, this really popped, right? So you might want to be cautious, or if you do buy, be prepared if it pulls back, right? So prepare yourself mentally. Let's put it that way. Now, in terms of another thing, I'll now bring in sports. The sports card market, supposedly and possibly is really heating up now. Again, because I know a lot of the quote-unquote card bros, they hold a lot of crypto, right? And crypto's jumped. So usually what they do is they'll sell it and then they will, pour it into sports cards. Comic books is another different story, but sports cards and actually memorabilia now as well. Personally, I actually like the game used stuff. I've been collecting, and I do mean collect, for the last 40 plus years. And I will say, when I was a kid, if you could get an authenticated game used Michael Jordan jersey or basketball, and they could point it to this day they played in here, etc., right? Or a Kobe jersey, or etc. And none of the photo match stuff, right? Photo matching is I have a lot of questions about that. So, well, that was Massey Hall, by the way. Okay, we're at Wellington and Simcoe now. We're gonna cross here. But But you got to be careful as well with memorabilia and sports cards, because obviously there are players. But what's kind of scaring me or making me cautious, let's say, because I've actually reduced a lot of my buying of trading cards. Even the grading, well, we can't do it because I don't know. PSA's got this weird policy now with the tariffs. They won't accept direct submissions, and even their vaults, they don't. I don't. I can't get access to my PSA account, but whatever. Anyways, you got to be careful because the companies like PSA and Fanatics, because as they taken more of a grip of the once hobby, I call it now a business, right? They now it's it's really just profiting off someone's passion, right? So you got to be careful of that. Even Rogers is using dynamic pricing for their tickets, and again, I understand with the playoff tickets, and I paid through the roof for the tickets as well, right? But and that's another argument. I'm not going to go there. But the point is that with sports cards, you got to really be careful. Even with the Pokemon trading craze, I know the Labubu, the Pop Mart, that bubble's already burst, right? So keep that in mind, right? Sports obviously is a different animal but at the same time, like I hate to say it, but like Tom Brady, I grew up watching him. I did cheer for the Patriots, even though I'm a Yanks fan. But I mean, they're pretty awesome. But I will say that I've noticed when I went to Fanatics Fest, Tom Brady is really just turned into a pitch man, and really just trying to push things. And I guess it's one thing. Like I'll say, like over time, obviously. Over time, I can say that like memorabilia, sure, it'll go up in value. Like very key items, I think, not everything. Okay, very very key items, people will want over time. And again, like how the concept of gold or even real estate, but without the debt laid to it. You're gonna. Okay, so now we're on front. And I'm on Lower Simcoe here. So we're pretty close to the Dome. We're going to pass by the Metro Convention Center. So, when you just be careful with that, because if Fanatics ever pulls out of that market, let's say, like Michael Rubin, again, don't know the guy, wish him all the best, we went to 2 Fanatics Fests. Don't know how the third one's gonna go, but what if he decides to pull out, right? Because I know he wanted to cash out from with Fanatics. What happens to the market then, right? When you don't have that inherent backing, right? Does all that quote unquote investment money leave, right? All those celebrities and actors and actresses and supposedly doing that, right? It's like, again, it's because I'm also a finance guy, where when I see, if I were to see celebrities promoting, buying stocks or options or futures trading or anything crazy like that, I'd be like, wow, I'm kind of out of here, right? I know I've seen this I might be early, but I've seen how this train ends, right? Usually in a huge crash, right? So that's all I'm going to say about that. I mean, if you love this stuff and it crashes, who cares, right? I have stuff. I'm a Yankees fan. I've got stuff. Mix, one of my favorites, the Babe, right? Michael Jordan growing up. I do have an 84 star Jordan. Never going to sell it. Don't care how much it is. Don't care what people offer me. Don't care, right? However, if someone asked me, if it were to crash down to $1,000 again, right, what would I do? I'd buy another one. That'd be kind of cool to have. right? So that's the thing. So that's why I say, folks, just be careful with that. And then obviously the liquidity on sports memorabilia and trading cards is actually really tough. Here, by the way, is the Metro Convention Center, Fan Expo, Toronto Comic Con are here. I've got videos on that on my other channel, Winston W. If you ever want to watch that. We're getting close. And this video is actually 45 minutes long. I appreciate it if anybody's even still around on this one. I know you guys like the concerts, but hey, I thought I'd just do this one. But what? Seriously, though, I have worked, been in the industry, seen things, and I wanted to kind of at least give my what I can offer you. Use everything as a mosaic, obviously. You know, if anything is of use to you, please use it. If it's garbage, you know, I appreciate you listening, and just brain dump the knowledge, right, or what I've said. So, if that's the case, right? But just be careful with the sports memorabilia, though, because I was actually there during the late 90s / 2000s when that all crashed, right? And 90, 91 Upper Deck baseball, Upper Deck hockey, right? All of it crashed. It was pretty rough. But I was a kid then, so it didn't really matter, right? Believe it or not, even Gretzky rookies, Jordan rookies, those are just basically the only things you could sell, right? So, at least back then to me, right? But I mean, who knows? I could be wrong. I know PSA is trying to monetize the card market or memorabilia market, and but like I said, just be careful. If Ruben ever walks out, then you're gonna have a problem. We're gonna have a problem, right? So, I mean, I'm not I'm not stupid. Obviously, I'm much as I collect this stuff, I'm aware of what the stuff's worth, right? So, and I do have multiple. So, I mean, I do sell some stuff when it gets crazy. Like during the pandemic, I sold some stuff that at the time, to be frank, some people would have said I sold too early, but looking back now, it was the prices were extremely favorable to me, and that's the thing. So here's John Street in front. So here's the Dome. We're gonna walk up these stairs. I'm going to show you some of the Domer. But I want to thank you folks who've stuck with me this long. And if you have any questions ever, I know no one really does, because they like the concerts. I don't blame you. Please feel free to ask. Like I said, I've worked in these markets too. I don't work in them anymore, so I don't really have any conflict. And I understand people that, there's a lot of people on YouTube, they have affiliation code or they work with a certain, company, and I get the whole thing where people say, why is that you always feel like you're being sold nowadays? Because no one ever wants to be sold, okay? I know that's one rule that I learned working. So you don't make people feel sold, but the problem with YouTube is nowadays, when you watch a video, as soon as you see a sponsorship, you're like, all right. So no sponsor here, no nothing. I'm just the guy that takes walks. But if you do subscribe, any revenue that comes up, I will donate it to charity. Oh wow, the lines are pretty big right now. This is game 2, folks. Oh, they got it's pretty crazy. I tell you, this has been quite a walk. I've been walking close to an hour on this one. I was at the game yesterday and I was feeling it. Sorry. Check you guys out. And then folks, we had seasons previously. The way the playoff tickets work is that they make you pay upfront everything for the playoff seats, and it pretty much comes up to next season's value, right? So yeah, it's crazy. I know a lot of people are saying that. And then what they do is that, let's say the Jays don't make it. I know Jay fans are gonna kill me, right? Because this happened to us last time. What they do is they ask you if you want to apply that credit to next season's tickets versus sending you the money back, right? And then obviously they make it not the most easiest way to get your money back if you want your money back, right? So just keep that in mind. The playoff season tickets are not cheap. They're nowhere close to what you pay in regular seasons. That's not the case, right? So anyways, just keep that in mind. I know they've been advertising the playoff ticket packs, you know, guaranteed, you're guaranteed, and that's why, because the value is so high. But it is Rogers Communications, so just keep that in mind. But I do love you, Rogers. Thank you for letting me, you know, post stuff. So if you're interested, folks, check my other channel, Winston W. I'll be posting on game content. Oh, here we go. They got the, I don't know what you call them. Dance pack, hype crew, I don't know. Anyways, go Yanks, let's tie this one. Thanks for watching. See you in the next walk.